No, not ready. Is our,
They should be working now.
Are you sick?
Are you getting over a cold too?
yes, ma'am. So it's not because I'm blubbering because of this crowd, it's because I've got a little cold.
Yeah, we believe that, don't we?
This one?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Refreshing. Now going.
All right. Good morning. Good morning. So good to see you here today. Today is Tuesday, November 12th, 2019. It is 10:01 a.m. We are in the city chambers, and I call the city commission regular meeting to order. Those present with me, along with this big crowd, is Commissioner Luke, Vice Mayor McDowell, Mayor Hanks, myself, Commissioner Carrison, we have Commissioner Emmerich, City Manager Lear, City Attorney Slayton, our Deputy City Clerk, Ms. Taylor, Recording Secretary, Ms. Goodman, and we have our Police Chief back there, and I can't see that far. Who's back there with us?
Even with your glasses?
No, my glasses don't see far, they only see close up. But it's good to see our...
Deputy Fire Chief.
It's good to see our deputy chief back there. Just a couple of reminders before we get down to business. Please turn off your cell phones or put them on vibrate if you would, please. Anyone wishing to speak, please fill out a public comment card right over here to my left. You'll pass that off to the officer and he'll get it down to where we need it. And with that, let us please stand for an invocation. Our pastor is not here, so I will give it today. And then we will have the Pledge of Allegiance, if the Vice Mayor will lead that for me, please. In Isaiah 58:11, it says, "The Lord will guide you continually, giving you water when you are dry and restoring your strength. You'll be like a well-watered garden, like an ever-flowing spring." Lord, I pray that you guide us always. Satisfy the needs that need to be met during this meeting. Strengthen us as we make tough decisions. I pray that we will be fruitful. Father, please guide us so that this meeting can be productive. Make us to be effective and decisive. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, if I can get a motion to approve the agenda, please.
Mayor, I don't have buttons working still. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
No second?
I need to pull one item off of the agenda.
Before we approve it? Okay, and I think the city manager wanted to pull off item A off of consent.
Oh, I thought you were going to do that during consent item. I apologize.
No, it's being
I
pulled.
need to pull it completely
Full
off.
completely? Okay.
So if you want to recant
I'll
your second.
remove my second.
I'll make a motion, Mayor, to approve the agenda as presented, pulling item 4A, the disposition of surplus assets.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And that motion carries. Okay, we're going to move on to public comment.
You're going to be able to do this, Mayor?
There he goes.
You want to press the gavel and I'll call the names?
That's all right.
Okay.
I got a reputation to hold up here.
Especially wearing that cowboy hat, you know.
Try not to be
You
nice.
gotta be tough.
Be tough.
All right, I'm going to call your names 3 at a time. If you'd please line up over here to my left. Your microphone is that long bar sitting there, so please speak to it. You have 3 minutes, and just state your name for the record, please. Nicole and Craig Hummel, Mark Rohr, and Pamela Rohr. Yeah.
Before we move on to the next item, from you.
Nicole and Craig Hummel, thank you, Mr. Hanks, for your service to Northport.
Thank you, Mr. Hanks. Mayor Hanks.
Mark Rohr, thank you very much. You've done a wonderful job. Praise God.
Pamela Rohr, and I just would like to thank you personally and on behalf of our community for your support, your encouragement, your time, your dedication, and especially for the National Day of Prayer. For the first time ever that I'm aware of on the National Greens, we were able to come together across denominational lines, across our race, ethnicity, religion, and come together for the sake of the people. And I just give you all the thanks for that, and praise God.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna make it.
Joey Adams, Larry Grant, and Ashley Walters.
Joey Adams, I've had the privilege of working with you, Chris. You've been an amazing boss, but you're an even better friend. Man, thank you for always being there, and just thank you for what you do for the city here.
Larry Grant, thank you so much, Mayor, for all your service to the city and your great leadership. Thank you.
Ashley Walters, and I just want to thank you for everything that you've done. It's been a blessing living in Northport in the last year. Thanks.
Susan Mangoon, Joy McInnes, and Pastor Chris Thompson at Coastal Church.
Hello, Chris. I just want to say that the short time that we're here in Florida, particularly Venice and Northport area, we are so honored and so privileged to have known and befriended such a warm, kind-hearted person like Chris Hanks. Chris, we want to thank you for your valuable service to our city, your sacrifices, and everything that we've done so far. God bless you, Chris.
Thank you. You state your name for the record.
Joy McInnes. I would like to thank Mayor Hanks. I've known you for at least 13, 14 years, and I know you have a good heart. And from that heart comes that heart to serve the city of Northport. And you've done incredible good for the city. So I want to thank you, and I would say, God bless you, and to more.
Thank you. You state your name for the record.
Chris Thompson, here on behalf of Coastal Church. We just want to thank you for everything that you've done for our church, helping us move back to Northport after Hurricane Irma. It was a big deal for us to be relocated out of the city, and with a great deal of help from you, we were able to get back into the city. So we just want to thank you.
Trish Kyle, Aaron Emmel, and Becca Hill.
Trish Kyle, and I just want to say that Mayor Hanks is one of the first people that I met here when we moved down here, 2015, and I was honored to help him with his city commissioner campaign, even though being in Warm Mineral Springs, I couldn't vote for him. And I was blessed to have the shirt that he had made for his mama to wear for his campaign.
Aaron Emmel, resident of Northport. Just want to thank you, Mayor Hanks, for all the hard work and the good job you've done with the rest of the council and the leaders in the city. Thank you.
Becca Hill, and I personally know your wife and kids. They're awesome and wonderful. I am the daughter of a mayor in Mississippi, so I know what it's like to live that life. And so I just want to offer encouragement to you and thank you so much for what you have done. I work for a realtor here in the area, and Northport gets chosen 9 times out of 10 for people coming into the area because of the job that you and the commissioners have done. So thank you so much.
Marilyn Hayes, Bobby Schott, Dr. James McInnes, and then, well, my wife, Melinda Hanks.
Good morning. My name is Marilyn Hayes. Mayor, thanks. There's not enough thanks for you, sir. You've done an amazing job, both seen and unseen. May God bless you richly and your family in your next season, sir. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bobby Shoddy, Old Court Street. First, I'd like to thank the entire commission for a great job they've done. We've had a really good commission, done a lot of good things. We don't always agree, but I think majority of the time, you guys have done a great job. And especially our city manager has done a great job too, by the way. I know he has a tough job. And Mayor Hanks, fantastic, good man, and good for our city, and now on to the county in 2020. Thanks, Hanks.
Thank you.
Dr. James McInnes, having a doctorate in humanitarian services, I have met a lot of leaders in the world, like interacted with the Prime Minister of Sweden, the Lord Mayor of Liverpool, and the Duke of Gloucester. I met a lot of these people, but one thing that Mayor Chris really touches me is he has a heart. I see the way that many of these people work, but I always look at the heart. And knowing Chris as I do, he has a heart for people, a heart for what's doing right. We want to thank you for your service. And it's exceptional. He's an exceptional man. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Oh, boy, here we go. Now I might need this.
Yeah, give me a couple of those.
I'm Melinda Hanks, Easton and Trenton, and I'm going to read this because I'm nervous, and I'll forget everything. So I just want to take a moment to thank my husband, Chris, for a job well done this past year as he served as mayor. The title of mayor takes on a certain backlash and aggression due to what most people know of a strong mayor, but not what we have here in our city. So thank you, Chris, for having a strong back and helping us, as your family, also learn to gain strength too. Being commissioners, as all of you know, is a thankless job that takes a lot of time away from your families, studying late into the nights, attending hundreds of events and conferences, and making our city amazing. So it's time we unite and we spread our love and appreciation for all of our leaders in our wonderful city. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Wants me to pass the gavel.
So the mayor has passed the gavel. It's 10:15. At this time, since you are surrounded by people that love you and your family is here, City Attorney, there is nothing prohibiting us from doing a presentation to the mayor. Thank you. If I can have all the commissioners and mayor join us down below.
I don't know if I can go. Good job.
I think for the final picture, you need all the red up here standing too. After we do this. Yeah.
So every year we have a mayor, and every year we lose a mayor. And this usually will happen at the end of the meeting, but because y'all are here, it seems only appropriate to do this now. At this time, Mayor Hanks, thank you very much for your service this past year, representative of our city and the commission. This is for you and for your service as mayor. Thank you.
Wow. Wow, wow. You know, it's a little easier for us, a little harder for the family members. And you don't realize kind of some of the things, you know, when there's a lot of mud being slung from people that don't really know you as a person, without consideration for the children that might be on social or reading the newspaper or things like that. You know, it gets hard for them. And I want to thank my wife and my kids for making my house a safe space for me. No matter where I go, whether it's in Walmart, and I get yelled at, I did get yelled at once right in the front of Walmart. Whether you get trapped in Publix because you're a captive audience while you're just trying to check out for that ice cream. As my son will tell you, he said one day, he said, when we walked in, they said, "Gosh, Dad, you're like a celebrity." Well, this was early on. And then after about an hour of just trying to buy ice cream, he said, "Is there a back door around here somewhere we can just get out?" But the things that they go through, I think, are a lot harder. It's easier for us because this is what we chose to do. My wife had a little hand in it, but my kids had nothing to do with it. And I want to thank Braden and Easton and Trenton for being 3 young men that have taken care of the house while I'm gone, help Mama, and do these things. I also want to thank this commission. Though sometimes we don't agree on many things, and though sometimes we get a little snippety at one another up here, I mean, that doesn't happen. And that doesn't happen in any of your houses either, because everything is perfect within your house and among your friendships. This has been a true blessing of a board for me. Again, though we don't always agree on everything, I consider everyone up here a friend of mine. And I want to thank each one of you. This has completely blown me away. I know my wife was doing something. I stayed out of it. I didn't know exactly what she was doing. Guess she got tired of some things. I don't know what happened, but I keep looking at this because I can't look at you guys. I'm hiding behind my hat here. But I want to thank each one of you for your support, because sometimes it does feel a little lonely out there. And it's good to know that you have friends. And so thank you.
At this time, since I still have the gavel, I am going to recess this meeting for 10 minutes so that there can be family pictures if... Oh, absolutely, but as soon as we're done.
We're already disagreeing.
Okay, so we're not going to recess yet.
Sorry, I tried warning you, just saying. Yeah. And I hate to tell you, but even when you leave office, it's still going to happen. So you might want to look at Port Charlotte for shopping, not moving, but for shopping. Because I can tell you, Sarasota County is going to be a tough one. It doesn't matter where you go. Venice, St. Northport, Nokomis, it doesn't matter. And it follows you forever and ever. But as to our great mayor who's leaving this year, thank you for the positive, incredible strength that you've shown throughout this year, bringing this commission to move forward, a forward-thinking commission, one that accomplished a lot. Even though we don't get the credit that we should, it doesn't matter, because we're not here for that. And to have other commissioners that follow that line of thought is a very inspiring and professional and just a wonderful thing to experience again. It's sad that you're going to be leaving us soon. I was really hoping for another 4 years. But I only see great things for the future, as I've told you before. And I do believe that we have nowhere to go but even higher up from here on out. And this is the best city in this state. Don't let anybody ever tell you any differently, because we have improved dramatically. From 2000, 1999, 1997, I have been here a long time. This man here has been here probably longer than any of us here. But my goodness, to see where we came from and where we are today is just amazing. And what's going to happen in the future, you can thank everyone here, because that's the ones who built the foundation for where we're going. So thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioners.
Well, I don't normally agree with her, but okay. This one time. Chris, yeah, you led us well. You did a fantastic job. Look at the outpouring of the community that just tells you you did a fantastic job. I can't thank you enough, your family, for all the sacrifices. And we won't talk about DC, but here you go, sir.
Chris, thank you. Your leadership, thank you for your family. You truly do represent Northport. We're young, we're vibrant, and that's what we have here is a young, vibrant family. And I'm sorry for those rough roads that you endured, and that they endure. I wish life wasn't that way. But you're strong, and you have passed that strength to your family and to the community. So thank you. Appreciate you. You're real, and I love that about you. Always stay real and stay you. Love you.
It's not over yet. You still have one more year to serve the city of Northport. You're just not the mayor anymore. That's all. So you know what? Thank you for your service for this past year and as being mayor. Thank you, Melinda, and thank you, boys. And we are recessed now until 10:35. That'll give us about 15 minutes. 10:35.
Everybody come up here.
Can we go up there? Or just this
All righty, it's 10:35. Vice Mayor is passing the gavel back to the mayor to continue with public comment.
All right, we're still on public comment. I have Victor Dobrin, Steve Yeager, and then Jeffrey Scott, please. Come up to the pulpit, or the what's that called? It's pulpit, right? Yeah, whatever. And state your name for the record. Podium.
Victor Dobrin. Good morning, Commissioners and City Manager. Since moving to Florida in 2017, I witnessed a series of measures of the City Commission that interfere with the rights or demonstrated lack of competence in addressing the Commission fiduciary duty. The City of Northport, unfortunately, was set up on shaky grounds, with the land being about 95% residential. Even later annexation didn't do justice to remove some of the residential tax burden towards business entity. Unsustainable budget spending without end in sight, coupled with further unwise use of any monetary resources, are deeply concerning citizens who favor a more county-wide deployment of services, such as is done a good job with the school system or library system. This is a call for the city government to consider and work with the county government to study and propose a blueprint for a city government structure that will enable the citizen and all entities to enjoy a more stable and sustainable future. A consolidated county-city government presents great opportunities, not only for the more uniform economic development, but also consolidated public safety services such as fire, EMS, police. Sometimes we are living in a dysfunctional and costly organizational model, both of the county and city level. Consolidated Sarasota County government entity that will result from the county and city consolidation may have a name that is acceptable and unifies all the citizens. This is not a new concept, as variations are present across the country, such as Philadelphia, Jacksonville, Florida, Kansas City, Nashville, and the world, London, Berlin, Tokyo. The goal should be not to copy a specific one, but to cater to the needs of the citizen of the county. If consolidation is perceived a difficult undertaking, a simple way to achieve the same sustainable, stable goals that will render a better quality of life of the people on these lands is for the City Commission to vote and pursue cities' dissolution. As underlined by the National League of Cities, county-city consolidation has potential in City 101 to produce cost savings, increase efficiency, improve resources base, enhance planning capacity, economic development age, improve accountability, and country-wide harmony. Reality check, just giving a quote from a Kansas City administrator. He says, the quality of services has improved since then, thanks to economy of scales. Taxes have been cut by 15%, and the best difference result in a real improvement in local quality of life.
Thank you, Mr. Dover.
Thank you.
Mr. Yeager. Your name for the record.
My name is Steve Yeager, and I live on Daisy Drive in Cypress Falls community, part of the Woodlands CDD. I came to Florida and Northport from Minnesota. We did a fair amount of research to identify the area that we wanted to live in. Northport met our requirements, and so far we've pretty much enjoyed Northport and Florida as a place to live and retire in. I want to thank, since this is the first time I've spoken to the council, I want to thank all of you for the hard work that you folks do. I'm learning about this community and about this government process. And my experience back in Minnesota is that people that volunteer to serve their community have a passion for it. They may have some personal agendas. It's a lot of hard work. So I want to thank all of you for your service and your hard work and your sacrifices that you make. Thank you, Mayor, for your service. The topic that I have is on the budget process. But first, I want to thank Vice Mayor Debbie McDowell for preparing and facilitating essentially a training program, Northport in My Government, I think it's called. It was a 3-part series, and the last part being budgeting. I learned a lot about government in Florida in general and the city specifically, so thank you very much. That was very beneficial, and I hope that is continued, in fact, supported by the city. Now, with regard to the budget, I don't have a lot of time here, I guess. I'll have to come back and talk a little bit more about the budget, but I was just amazed at the amount of time that was put into the budget process beginning way back in the early year. And then on the September 19th budget meeting, you essentially reduced the mill rate. Very contentious meeting, public protest, and all of that hard work boiled down to one meeting on the 19th where you reduced the mill rate, but you didn't reduce the budget. And so the net effect of that is going to be you kick the can down the road. You kick the can down the road because you took money out of the reserve fund. And now you're going to have to replenish that reserve fund and still meet all of the needs and future needs. And so what that is, to me, it's a red flag that something's wrong with the budget process. So I have some ideas on what you might want to consider, but I'm out of time.
Thank you, Mr. Yeager.
But hey, we can do this again.
Huh?
I said, but hey, we can do this again. In other words, we have more meetings, you can come back.
I probably will do that. Thank you much.
Mr. Scott, please state your name for the record.
Jeffrey Scott, homeowner, Twinkle Avenue. I'd like to talk about economic success. Why does the city of Northport continue to struggle economically? Your answer is quite simple. Many residents of Northport do not want any economic success. Why is this? Well, building relationships with stakeholder support has been a problem for years in moving this city towards a brighter future. To date, economic development has been a contentious issue. Our city commission seems to advocate for more clear-cutting of our forested areas, and they assume business investment and economic development will soon follow. Well, in my opinion, that has not been the desired outcome. When our commissioners decide to let go of their self-imposed ignorance, then Northport can break free and embrace a path that leads to economic success. Then we can begin the process of restoring trust in local government. It takes a collaborative effort by all of us to create a transparent, accountable, and responsive city commission and functioning city hall. Wouldn't you all agree? Thank you.
All right. We'll move on to announcements. City Clerk, please read the announcements into the record.
Current vacancies for the following boards and committees include the Art Advisory Board, Audit Committee, Beautification and Tree Scenic Highway Committee, Charter Review Advisory Board, Citizen Tax Oversight Committee, Community Economic Development Advisory Board, Environmental Advisory Board, Historic and Cultural Advisory Board, Joint Management Advisory Board, Northport Youth Council, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, Planning and Zoning Advisory Board, Public Utility Advisory Board, Zoning Board of Appeals. The upcoming expirations for the following advisory boards and committees: Beautification and Tree Scenic Highway Committee, Citizens Tax Oversight Committee, Firefighters Pension Board of Trustees, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, and Public Utilities Advisory Board. One Northport resident to serve on the Sarasota Manatee Metropolitan Planning Organization's Citizen Advisory Committee. If anyone would like more information, please see the city clerk's office. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to consent. City Manager, did we have anything pulled for discussion as of yesterday, I guess?
Yes, sir. I had 4 items, which are items 4D, E, F, and G.
And G. All right, can I get an approval of the consent, pulling items D, E, F, and G for discussion?
Mayor,
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented, removing items 4D, E, F, and G for additional conversation.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor by the Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Luke. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And the motion carries. So we're moving on to item 191173. City Manager, item D.
Thank you, Mayor. These 4 items, all 4 of them that were pulled, are the updated lease agreements based on the reduced rates that Commission directed us. And these are the first 4 that needed to be redone, so that they went into effect literally right after the reduced rates, but they'd already been approved. So I'm not sure what the questions are, so these were all 4 pulled by Commissioner Carasone.
Okay, Commissioner Carasone?
Thank you, City Manager. I just want to ask a couple of questions and then make a statement. At $9.50 a square foot, the money earned during this time on these spaces, shouldn't it account for the original investment, which I know that some of it was paid for a grant, but some of it was through surtax money and capital improvement money. So have we ever gone and done the cost allocation for that to pay for the actual building of the building?
When this was brought forward, what it did is, if I'm remembering correctly, when these were all brought forward, the rate that was chosen did account for depreciation.
Depreciation, but I'm talking about the original.
It's designed to be the same thing.
Okay. So then and as I understood it, when we first built this building, it was to actually help offset the costs of running the social service department so that it wouldn't be such a burden on the tax base. So how will that actually affect us, or will it?
Well, I mean, the reduced rates will bring in less revenue for the general fund, which is where social services is funded from. So I'm not.
What's the total amount, let's put it that way, that we won't have this year by reducing it by the, is it $13.50?
We reduced it from $14 down to $9.50. I would have to find that amount for you. I don't have it off the top of my head.
Okay. So while you're doing that, I guess that, of course, I again, can't really support this because I think it's about $40,000 that'll be taken out of the coffers to help reduce the, or at least offset the cost of the social service department, and you're just taking one to give to another. Unfortunately, I do believe that the city does a lot, and most of these nonprofits do receive grants that have the allocation of funds in those grants for the rentals. So if the rental is $10, $12, whatever it may be, in that grant cycle, they will have that money paid for through the grants. So I would much rather see a grant pay for the rental space versus the taxpayers paying to offset it. And granted, I understand that the nonprofits that rent these areas are being, their costs, they go above and beyond the amount of money it costs to actually rent the building as if it was a for-profit area. But again, we're allowing them to rent, and there's some plus sides to it, but I get what we're trying to do. I guess $9.50 is just a very, very, very low amount compared to what the cost of renting space anywhere else is. And I just, again, am against it because I think we're going to be taking about $40,000 out for the year when all is said and done. And it will not help. We'll have to find that $40,000, which is right now pretty much going to help with the social service department. And if I don't get support for that, I also want to make sure that if you do choose to go forward, please, please, please put a clause in these leases that say that they must be there X amount of hours on a weekly basis. and that they can't just open the doors for 1 day a week and still get it for $9.50 an hour and still be there, because we have had that happen. We've had it where services have been in there and they're not available. And they're just pretty much using an empty space that another service or nonprofit could actually benefit from. So if you must go forward, then please keep that in mind. And do you have a number? I see the look.
The number
See,
for
I
all of
talk
them added up is $39,703. That'd be for the entire building at the reduced rate.
Right. Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
I was against not necessarily the reduction, but being done this year because the budget was already done based on the $14.50 an hour, a square foot. But because I was in the minority and the commission approved the $9.50, I am in support of it. I would have much rather wait until next year. But I hear what Commissioner Carasone is saying. I really hope that these nonprofits are actually using the space to help the citizens on a regular basis, not just like Commissioner Carasone said, once a week or once a month or whenever they feel like showing up. There's a lot of nonprofits that would like to expand the space that they already have in this social services building. And they can't because it's full. But is it really full and being utilized, or is it just full and sitting empty? So I will support this because it's already been done. I would have liked to have seen it happen next year. But City Manager, how long are these leases for every year? Do they come back for renewal, or is it automatic 10-year renewal?
Second, I'll pull one up. So that we can, I believe they're for 10-year periods, but
So it's a 10-year lease agreement, and we won't see it for another 10 years, or do we see it every year?
yeah. So when do they see it again? You'll see it again in 5 years. They automatically renew annually. They're 1-year leases that automatically renew without the need to come back until 5 years.
Thank you for that additional information.
Anybody else? Commissioner Luke.
My light's on, or it was on.
Commissioner Luke.
The reduced amount of $9.50 was still over the cost that it was to operate. And I understand that nonprofits do get grants, and our social service needs to be getting grants too. There are opportunities for them. Using a nonprofit is philosophical to me, that you don't gain profit from a nonprofit to run your own nonprofit. It just isn't sensible to me. It is our nonprofits and our charities that supply, or are supposed to supply to the community what the government does not. So I don't like charging them more than what the cost is that's relevant. The cost of $9.50 is still higher than it was in the comparable table to other social service type entities. So I am good with what is being done. Social service, it costs like it's $250,000 to operate that department. And so maybe the whole thing needs to be looked at, maybe in strategic planning or something. But the question that I have in regard to it, and I posed a question, didn't get an answer. In these leases, it's talking about furnished unit. So I'm wondering, I mean, to me, real estate, when you talk about something being furnished, there's appliances and furniture in it. So I'm wondering why these leases state the square foot of furnished area, furnished space.
We'll have staff come up, they're gonna let you know what's in each facility when they rent it.
Morning, Janet Carrillo, Social Services Manager for the record. Some of the suites do have chairs, desks, and tables, so they do come furnished.
Chairs, desk, and tables, and is all of that?
It depends on the suite. If you have a specific question on each suite, I can give you an inventory on each one.
So all the contracts that I saw in this agenda all stated furnished?
Yes.
So is there a list of what they have that they're using of
Yes,
ours?
we have
And
that
they
list.
are held accountable for the care of that?
Yes, we have that.
Okay, thank you, that was my question.
Anybody else? I don't have a problem with doing this. You know, nonprofits, in essence, that help your community relieve the tax burden upon the city, typically. So I don't, you know, I see this as a subsidization of cost to the city. So I don't have a problem with that. That being said, Commissioner Carusone did pull up something in her statement that caused me to think, which was, you know, there are several nonprofits that need extra space, that are you know, they're trying to do just as much good as anybody else. And to lose that space when they, you know, when they're putting in 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week because they don't have the room for anything else, to be pulled off of the market for them, you know, causes me to want to wonder. That being said, is it really our business to tell an entity, a private entity like this that does relieve some of the tax burden, how they should run themselves? So then I'm going to take the next 30 seconds to think about. And if anybody else has anything they want to say, Commissioner Carusone.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner, or Mayor still. The clause should be something that no less than 35 hours a week, excluding holiday hours, that it will be used and run. Only because I think that if you're going to go below market, which is what we're doing essentially here, we're looking at the cost versus the market rate, then in exchange for going below market in the rental, then there should be some sort of give and take. And I think that's kind of basic contract law. Forgive me if that's not correct there, City Attorney. So by going below the market rate, then in return, they need to promise or sign that they will invest at least 35 hours or more a week in that building to serve citizens of the city of Northport, and that, excluding holidays and weekends, of course, and that should be part and parcel of them signing a contract at $9.50 a square foot. And that you really should have something in there that on an annual basis versus every 5 years clause, that on an annual basis that you have a right to review if the $9.50 will cover the cost of that building. And that if it does get to a point where that $9.50 won't cover the cost, you have an ability to actually come back and change that rate and negotiate a different rate, because who knows what's going to happen in 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years. It concerns me that there's no safeguards in there if it costs more for us to run those things. What if FPL comes in they get FPL and telephone separately, but what if something major happens that we did not expect and we have to come in and do a major capital improvement? Those are kind of some of the things that run through my mind to keep it at $9.50 for 5 years.
The attorney.
Yes, I just wanted to point out with respect to the term of the agreement is a 1-year term, and it can automatically renew up to 4 times, which I know you've already heard. But I also want to point out to the commission that either party may terminate the agreement at any time without penalty or premium with 60 days written notice. So you can put extra language in there if you want, but we have the ability to terminate the agreement with just 60 days notice for any reason. And that would include terminating it in an attempt to negotiate a new lease at a different rate or under different circumstances.
And I appreciate that, but there's a couple of things, because that's pretty much always been the clause. I don't even think it was 60 days. I think they gave them 30 days in the past. But sometimes what happens is it falls off the radar, number one. Too much other things are going on that it falls off the radar. The other thing is that if it's not in the contract, it's really hard to hold them accountable for that. If you didn't say they have to be there 35 hours or more.
Yes, and that is not a requirement of the contract.
Right,
currently.
right,
You are
right.
right about that.
It is.
Oh, it is? Where?
All of them?
Because I looked at it.
On the lease agreement on page 1, it has use of
Fine.
premises, line, or area 2A.
In the whereas clauses?
Nope.
Oh,
2A.
2A.
They used a minimum of 32 hours a week.
Primary to carry on its business. Fine.
That's been standard.
Thank you. Okay, because I knew we talked about it like 3 years ago, but I didn't see it in here, so. Do we need to put in there the holidays, excluding holidays? Or city manager?
That would be if you all wanted in there. I mean,
I
I
hate
think this
to-
allows most holiday weeks are only 1 day. So that would be the 8 hours.
So it would be all right, okay.
So
And then what about the annual, well, I guess now what city attorney's saying is the annual adjustment for if it costs more to run the center could actually be reviewed on an annual basis. It just has to be within 60 days prior to their lease. And do we get 2 months advance notice that they're going to renew?
We have from,
Sorry.
Janet Carrillo, Social Services Manager for the record. We do get notification from tenants if they want to make a change. We have received the 60-day notice. If they plan to stay there, we don't have notice from them. We could request notice at your direction at that time.
I just want something in place that says we're going to reevaluate the cost of how much it is in this building on an annual basis so that we're not in 3.5 years later, we're sitting here saying, oh my God, it costs $15 to actually run the building, but they're only paying $9.50. That's all.
City manager, I have your name up here.
Oh, sorry, I already spoke. Sorry about
Hey,
that.
Commissioner Luke, you have 3 minutes.
That review needs to be done on every operation that the city does, not just this one. If you go into a contract and you haven't seen whether it is equitable or not, I'm sorry, that's ignorant. You need to be taking care of every aspect. That's how you become accountable for the funds. I am in agreement with the 32-hour that it has been. Reason being is I think the intent of that building is to service the needs of the community. And we have seen in the past where entities kind of dissolved and just kept the building, kept the space without turning it over in case they might, ramp back up later. And we want the people, the citizens, to be served. And so I agree with that 32-hour, knowing that they are entities that are active and are working with the citizens instead of something sporadic.
Commissioner McDowell?
I hear what Commissioner Carrison is saying about making sure that we're receiving, that we're not paying more for what they're getting for space. I think that maybe we could give city manager direction that when we do budget talks and it's time for social services, they give us a comparison for the past year. How much did it cost to run that social services building per unit, per square foot, so that we can adjust as needed, if needed, when it comes time for their lease renewals. Yeah, I think that might be a way to make sure that we're looking at it at budget time. Because like Commissioner Luke said, if we're not looking at these agreements and making sure, then it is ignorant. It's part of our job.
I like that better than putting it in a contract.
Yeah.
City manager.
It's certainly something we can do. And if you guys want to see it at budget time, we can certainly do that. Keep in mind, as was stated, right now, we are above the cost of it. When we brought you the information back in late September, the cost per square foot with depreciation was about $813 a square foot, and we went with the $950, so it would be not as big of a hit this year for the lost revenue, which means we're probably going to be in good shape, but we do look at it, and we can give you the information annually. That's not an issue.
I don't know if you want to get a consensus, Mayor, to have city manager provide commission a update on cost versus expenses and revenues, and include the analysis on some of the comparable market rates citywide.
Commissioner Luke?
At budget time.
So, I mean, this is what we should be doing anyways.
I think it's on us at
Right.
budget time to ask
These are
those
the
types
things.
of questions.
Right.
A manager should be producing that anyhow, reviewing that, otherwise they don't know how to set their
Right.
budget. So to me, these are calculations that should be
They're already
done
being done.
without giving a direction.
But if we don't give that direction, they're not going to possibly have it available for us for budget when we're having the discussion.
Ask for it in budget.
But if we ask for it at budget, then they have to produce the documents and get the numbers together, and then it's the next budget meetings that we have the following month. If we give the direction saying at the first budget workshops, when social services comes out, or any other department, has this information available.
All right, let me finish this consensus. So I have a no from Commissioner Luke. Commissioner Emmerich,
Yeah, I'm good with it having coming out at budget.
Commissioner Carasone.
Yeah, it can come out of budget. I don't have a problem with that.
There's your consensus. So you have a consensus.
As long as it's not so labor intensive, I mean, it's
Right.
not, right? You already have these numbers,
Especially
so
going through those things anyway.
providing information, yep, that's fine.
So there's your consensus. So let's move on to a motion, and I'm assuming that this will work for all four of these. So do we need a separate motion for each one, or can we do them all under one motion?
I move that we approve consent agenda D, E,
Yeah.
separate.
Yeah, we need to do
The
separate
attorney shall.
per city attorney. So let's do each
All right.
one.
Move that we approve consent agenda D.
Second.
I'll second.
Motion on the floor by Commissioner Luke, seconded by Vice Mayor McDowell. Let us call the vote. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed?
Aye,
Be a nay.
yeah, nay,
All
whatever.
right.
Trying to
The
multitask.
motion carries
4-1 or 5-0?
4-1.
Move to approve consent agenda E.
I'll second.
I have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Luke, seconded by Vice Mayor McDowell. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay.
Nay,
And the motion carries 4-1.
Move to approve consent agenda F.
Second.
Motion on the floor by Commissioner Luke, seconded by Commissioner McDowell. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
nay,
And the motion carries 4-1.
And move to approve consent agenda G.
I'll second.
Motion on the floor by Commissioner Luke, seconded by Vice Mayor McDowell. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
nay.
And the motion carries 4-1. Commissioner Carasone.
She wanted to stay here.
For the reasons quoted.
Reasons stated, yeah, all of the above.
All right, so we are now moving on to public hearing. Ordinance number 2019-01. City Clerk, please read ordinance by title only.
Port Florida, amending the code of the City of Northport, Florida, related to right-of-way use permits, building permits, and certain shed permits and fees by amending Section 70-24, Administration, Permits, and Appendix A, City Fee Structure, Section K, Road and Drainage Fees, revoking the direction provided in Resolution Number 2018-R-28, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. This is the second reading. We've had, going through the backup, a ton of meetings on this topic. There was a few minor changes made between first and second reading, and those have been done. So with that, I'll just turn it over to see if there's any questions.
Put it down.
There's no questions, Mayor. I'll go ahead and make a motion.
I have nobody else. I'll entertain the motion.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 2019-01.
Second.
It's on the floor by Vice Mayor McDowell, seconded by Commissioner Luke. Vice Mayor McDowell, you have anything to that?
No, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Luke?
No, sir.
Call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And the motion carries.
Wow, this is just moving right along.
All right. Ordinance number 2019-48. I need a motion to direct the city clerk to read ordinance by title only.
So moved, Mayor.
Second.
Motion on the floor by Vice Mayor McDowell, seconded by Commissioner Luke. Let's call the vote. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. The motion carries. City clerk.
An ordinance of the City of Northport, Florida, amending the non-district budget for fiscal year 2018-19 by providing for changes related to fleet management, self-insurance, and employee benefits, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. City manager.
Thank you, Mayor. As we had in solid waste, this is a year-end budget amendment for some true-up items. Biggest one, well, there's some for fleet, some for our self-insurance fund, and some for our employee benefit fund. The fleet, as you know, bills out the various departments and districts in the city for the services they provide. They had the ability, the other departments had the ability to absorb that, but fleet only budgets what they receive or what they estimate to receive. So as a result, they had some unanticipated expenses that they could not absorb. Self-insurance is, we estimate with use of an actuary how much will happen each year. We do have a stop-loss policy on that fund, but unfortunately, we had a couple of major expenses this year that exceeded that amount. The stop-loss did kick in, but we still have to pay the first $150,000 on those. And the employee benefit fund had some items in there that we did not anticipate this year, but they are budgeted for next year. So with that, I'll open up for questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner McDowell.
So regarding the employee benefits fund, where you're talking about unbudgeted costs for COBRA, what costs are there related to COBRA?
Well, costs, we still have an expense, and the way that, as you know, on our budgeting, just because somebody pays us, and what COBRA is if somebody leaves, they can sign up for, they can stay on our insurance plan. I believe it's for 17, 18 months, something in that time frame. While they have to pay the cost of it, that's a revenue. It's not recorded net, so we have an expense that we pay for. Even though we're getting an offsetting revenue, we still have to write the check for that, and we didn't plan for as many people to sign up for COBRA as did sign up for it.
But if the employee is on COBRA, and I'm just using round numbers, they have to pay the city $500 because they're no longer an employee, correct? So they're paying the city the full cost of their health insurance, dental insurance, and whatever other insurances they have. They no longer get the city's benefit. So they're paying the full $500. And then the city turns around and pays out the $500. What costs are there then associated with it? It's a wash.
It is a wash, but in accounting rules, it's recorded as a revenue and an expense. So when I don't have the money for that expense, because I only budgeted for, say I have 100 people, now I have 101 people that I'm paying the expense for. Even though I have an income coming in for that, I still have to pay for that additional person. So I can't record it as a net. I have to record the revenue and the expenditure. So we didn't plan for as many people to sign up for COBRA because you never know if somebody's going to take it. So we estimate, and unfortunately, however you want to look at it, whether fortunate or unfortunate, more people took COBRA this year than we planned for. So the expenditure side still goes up, even though we have an offsetting revenue coming in to pay it. We budget both sides.
And it was budgeted the previous year.
At a lower amount, because.
I think that's what you're trying to say too.
Yeah, if we think that 5 people are going to, 5 people are going to leave and they're going to sign up for COBRA. If 10 people leave, yes, we get a revenue that comes in, but we still have to pay for those 10 people. You just don't pay it out of the revenue account. It's no different than in other funds. We have revenue come in, but as you know, we budget for revenue and expenditures.
So it's revenue neutral is what you're
It is
trying to
revenue
say.
neutral to the city.
And it's just about making
But I
sure that
still
that
have-
money's in that little bucket that says it's there.
It hasn't been approved yet. We're trying to get it approved.
So this is basically truing up for the end of the year.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
And it's a wash,
It is
even
a
though it's showing a $6,300 expense. It would be nice to see the expense and the revenue. All right. And then what is this, oh, I know what the 10 I found out what that is. I have no other questions, Mayor.
Anybody else? I think I saw yours, was okay.
I guess. One comment is, I'm glad we did the budget for the insurance the way we did, and that is putting that 10% over to build that pot up instead of reducing it. It's incidences like this that reason why you build it as quickly as you can. My question is on fleet for the fuel. Is that truly just for fuel? Because if it is, if the fuel were $3 a gallon, you've got about $30,000 or 30,000 gallons increase. That's a whole lot of gas or fuel. So I'm wondering if it's something other than just fuel.
If the increase in the amount of fuel we're using,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that, off the top of my head, I don't know if staff can answer the question of whether the fuel was just for increased usage or increased fuel costs. My guess is it's a combination of both, but I don't know off the top of my head. I can find that information out
Well,
for you.
actually, fuel isn't as expensive as it used to be.
No, but like I say, I don't have that information in front of me of, it's more expensive. It may have been more expensive than it was at the beginning of the year when we did the budget, but it's less expensive than it was a few years ago. That is correct.
Mayor, may I say something?
And your follow-up?
Okay, well, it's to Commissioner Luke's point that I think.
Go ahead.
It says in the legislative text, the fuel and maintenance costs. So it appears it's not just fuel, but maintenance also.
In Exhibit A, there's a portion for fuel and there's a portion for maintenance costs. It's called labor.
Right, and I was looking just strictly at the fuel portion.
Correct.
88,000.
Yeah, which is about 30,000 gallons, if it was $3 a
City
gallon.
Manager, do you have anybody that can
Just curious
answer
as
that?
to why we're using that much more fuel than we were.
Kim's coming up here.
Our finance director, she may know it. If not, we'll have to get it for you between first and second reading. We'll have to get it for you because what she is telling me is we cut fuel significantly last year during the budget. We may have cut it too much, but I'll find out we can get you an analysis of what caused the fuel to go up.
Before the second reading.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anybody else? If no, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, Mayor, to move, gotta get that ordinance on. Move ordinance number 2019-48 to second reading on November 24th.
6th.
6th, I'm sorry, November 26th.
Second.
Have a motion on the floor by Vice Mayor McDowell, seconded by Commissioner Luke. Anything to that?
No.
Commissioner Luke?
No.
I have nobody else, so let's call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay, and it carries. All right, we're gonna move on to general business. SAP 19237, City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. This is part of your special event assistance program. The applicant is requesting the up to, let's see, it's like $1,000 to be offset for city expenses. And we'll open up if you have any questions.
I have a question.
Vice Mayor McDowell. Wait minutes.
Can you please help me understand what city expenses are there going to be for the New Hopes event? They're not renting space.
That was my question too. The applicant's here.
Yes, we have staff coming up that can answer the question.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Sherry Willett Grondin. For the New Hope Community Church, they have estimated for trash and recycling pickup for the event. I have a preliminary cost from solid waste for $562.26 for the recycling and picking up of trash for the event.
That's all it is just the trash. There's no, like PD is not doing any like traffic controls or anything like that for this event?
That is correct. No PD, which it's just for the trash and the recycling costs.
All right, and I'll save it for my follow-up comments.
Commissioner Luke, you still had something?
No, that answered mine. I'm ready for a motion if you
All right.
are.
Commissioner Carson?
Yep, move to approve, move to award funds from the Special Event Assistant Program to Hope for Northport to cover the cost of the city fees and/or resources associated with the November 28, 2019 free Thanksgiving meal event in the amount to not exceed, wait, trying to find out the exact number. I think it's $1,000, right?
Yes.
Yeah, not to exceed $1,000.
Second.
A motion on the floor by Commissioner Carson, seconded by Commissioner Luke. Commissioner Carson?
It's a great event every year.
Commissioner Luke?
I agree. Hats off to you guys. I think it's 3,500 people or something that you feed. I mean, you have 5 different locations. And if you can make it out there, do so. It's great.
Commissioner McDowell, you had something you wanted to do?
Yeah, after the vote, I'd like to follow up with giving, get a consensus, if you don't mind. Mayor.
Okay, well, let's call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? And the motion carries. Commissioner McDowell?
Yeah, maybe we can get a consensus to have city manager give a breakdown of what the costs, an estimated cost, what they're going to be for each of these events, so we don't have to keep asking those questions each time.
They're all different. They're in the application.
No, it's not. It just says $1,000. It doesn't give the breakdown for, like, when I asked the question, what are the costs to be anticipated, and I had to ask the question.
I thought that was part of their application.
It used to be. We used to see another sheet that did that, but in this time, this agenda,
We
they
haven't seen
didn't.
it in a long time.
The reason being is sometimes they've not applied for the special event application, so we don't have the breakdown. We can give it to you when we have it, but it's not a requirement that they have a breakdown of fees. What the resolution says is they're entitled, not entitled, they are allowed to apply for a certain amount based on the size of their event. And what we have approved is a not to exceed, so they don't get money in excess of what they would pay in city fees. But we don't always have the information to give you all.
So did the Hope for Northport, did they apply for a special event permit?
Yes, ma'am, they have. So we have it for this one. It's not in there, you're correct, but I just want to make sure you know that we can't always give it to you because we don't always have it. Some of them apply for the assistance prior to applying for a permit.
Just for ease, maybe if you just include that information would be
We can
helpful.
include it when we have it, and we can include a statement that we don't have it when we don't have it.
Yeah, that would be good.
But we need that information to decide whether it is viable to be given. I mean, there's certain criteria, and her question of, are they using city services, we need to know. I mean, and there wasn't anywhere on that application for them to say what city services they were using so that we can say, yep, that fits. In the special event, yes, but in this criteria, if it's not a special event, we don't see what they're using it for. It might be they're thinking they're just going to get a donation, you know, without it being the services. So I understand where she's coming from.
I mean, like I say, we can ask them for it, but it's not a requirement in part of this process that you all have set up in the program. So if we don't have it, we can't give it to you. If you want to change the requirements, we can do that, which would be that they would have to apply for and give it to us. But right now, it's not a required item for them to give to us. So then when they get done with the event, if there was trash charges or police usage, that's when we would know what the amount is. And if, like I say, it's a waiver of city fees, it's not
A donation.
a donation to their organization.
Thank you.
Good. Are you good, Commissioner McDowell?
Oh, yeah. Just looking for more information to be
Okay.
able to speed this along. That's
All right, then we're going to move on. SAP 19, Wait, do we just do that one? Nope, 19-230. City manager.
Mayor, again, Special Event Assistance Program. This one is for the Cranberry Elementary, the Cranberry Cougars 5K event. And again, this one is looking for up to $500.
Commissioner McDowell.
Yeah, one of the program criterias, and please do not take this the wrong way, because I'm for this, but it goes to the criteria that we set for the special event program. One of the criteria, it says, the event must be open to the public. This is not open to the public. I can't go and run in this 5K race because I'm not, one, a student.
I ran it last year.
Yeah. It is open to the public?
Yeah.
I thought it was only
Been
open
open
to the
to public
students.
for 10 years.
I ran this race last year.
Oh, my apologies. I thought it was just for the school people. Okay, my apologies.
All right, if there's nobody else, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll let you do it.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve the Special Event Assistance Program for Cranberry Elementary for their 5K race.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor by Vice Mayor McDowell, seconded by Commissioner Carrasone. Let's call the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, and the motion carries. All right, on to 19-1287, City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, turn this one over to the city attorney, as this one's hers.
Oh, okay.
Of course.
City Manager, I believe the city has received notice of a class negotiation suit in the Federal District of Ohio where all of the national class, or not all the national individual suits against the opioid manufacturers brought by local governments have been consolidated into this class. The class includes all approximately 35,000 local governments in the United States, and we are in that class unless we choose to opt out. There's a deadline to opt out, and I've identified some of the considerations. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. What we're looking for today is input from the commission as to whether or not you would like to remain in the class, or if you would like the city to be removed from the class.
Thank you. Commissioner Little.
Personally, I'd like to stay in it. I don't want to opt out. Anything that we do receive monetarily, I think could recoup for the expenses for Narcan.
For what?
Narcan. We've purchased it. This is dealing with the opioid crisis, and we purchased Narcan for those. So I think it's a way of recouping some of the costs that we've put out concerning the opioid crisis. So I'm for staying in it.
Commissioner Carrasone.
Yeah, I'm absolutely 100% adamant about staying in this. Of course, you know, when it comes down to it, with all those cities, they're going to hand out a $5 check and say thank you for your help there. But as far as Narcan, I'm pretty certain that there's several grants that can pay for that. I would like to see the money go towards a drug education, you know, like DeFi or something to that degree that actually prevents opioid addiction. If there is anything that we should be a leader in, and it's this litigation, because I cannot tell you how 2006 till 2011, what an unbelievable crisis it was in this area. Not just here, but everywhere. But it just seemed more prevalent here. And at this point, what we're seeing is that shift of opioids are now shifting to heroin and meth. And I recently had a dear friend just lose her son over the weekend to an overdose. So I hope that this will be similar to the tobacco industry, and that they nail them to a cross, and we get to a point where there is so much commercialism, so much advertisement put out there and money put into prevention programs that in 10 years you're looked at as the outcast because that's what you're doing, because that's what they did with tobacco and it worked. We need to do that. In the same token, it also needs to be, you know, looked at through the mental health side of things. But for right now, I will be happy with them just being nailed to a cross. So. That's my thoughts.
Thank you. I also would be for staying in this. I talked to the city attorney about this about a year and a half ago. We discussed what can we do to look at, the burdens that have been upon the municipalities, upon the counties, upon the state over this, especially whenever we were understanding at that time the costs of Narcan and how some of these folks, they are so addicted, they want to get as close to death as possible, knowing that they'll be revived. And I don't know how you fight that. I don't know. I mean, I don't understand it, so I don't know how you fight it. So I would be all for staying in this, and I thank you, City Attorney, for bringing this back to our attention, because I know during that time you had talking to a couple of folks that had reached out to me, and it just wasn't the proper timing yet. So I appreciate you keeping this on your radar and bringing it back to us. Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, Mayor, that we have the city attorney continue with the opting in to the opioid class lawsuit.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor by Vice Mayor McDowell, seconded by Commissioner Carrasone. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And that motion carries.
Mayor?
Yeah.
Public comment card came in right after we were discussing the special event assistance program. We had already voted on it. I don't know if you want to hear it now or if you want to wait until the end of the meeting.
And we'll wait till the end. Thank you. All right, want to move on. Item 19-1290, discussion possible action regarding beautification tree seek highway committee. City manager.
Thank you, Mayor. This one actually, I believe, was at the request of one of the commissioners, but this is related to some issues we're having with attendance and board membership for this one of your committees, and the consideration of combining it with the Environmental Advisory Board. One that we're about to have a person drop off of, and then we won't have enough people on the committee for a quorum.
Commissioner Luke, you have 8 minutes.
I requested that this be put on so we could have a discussion. I asked for the material to be sent out from the code describing what the two boards consist of. And I don't know, probably Commissioner Carrasone remembers more than what the rest of us would in regards to the beautification. But a lot of it dealt with the 41 corridor. And I think when it was initially set up, they were trying to beautify that corridor, and it just branched out into beautification in other areas. They are having a lot of problem getting people to that committee. We went ahead as a board and developed the environmental committee. So I'm wondering if we want to combine the two, put beautification in with environmental, and instead of having two separate ones.
Thank you. Commissioner McDowell, you have 8 minutes.
Yeah, I understand the struggles of this beautification and tree scenic highway committee. I don't see the purpose of combining them because they do kind of overlap. We're having such a hard time trying to fulfill this committee more than probably any other advisory board. I don't know if this advisory board has kind of met its purpose. I don't know. I'm kind of leaning towards just maybe disbanding this beautification and tree scenic highway committee, and just, if anybody wants to, that's on this, then go join any other advisory board. They may find some other advisory board meets their interest more. But to say city attorney, draft language to combine them, I'm trying to understand what the actual purpose of combining them are, as opposed to just doing away with the beautification one.
I guess instead of combining, I probably should have phrased it, because their emphasis on the beautification part was
41?
beautification
41
in the
only.
trees. I mean, it didn't state 41 in the one that was issued to us, but I know it was there. So what I'm wondering is, does the language of the Environmental Advisory Board talk enough that they could handle beautification along the roadways too? Or do we need to add beautification to the environmental board?
I've got nothing more. I think I've said where I'm leaning towards on this whole subject.
Mr. Carson, you have 8 minutes.
So first of all, I think the request is to dissolve the tree and beautification.
It says combining
It
it.
says ordinance 2016-06 would be a creation of, you'd be repealing it and dissolving the beautification and tree scenic highway, right? Thank you. Okay, so essentially then what you would do is you'd take the duties and you'd put them within the environmental board. So you're doing exactly what you're saying. You're dissolving the one committee, you're giving whatever is not listed in the beautification, or in the environmental board, and you're shifting it to their side of things, which I think is a brilliant move, because we've had a problem with this particular committee for years and years. First, it was put together as an ad hoc committee to help with the rewrite of the tree ordinance when we did a massive rewrite. That was around 2001, I want to say 2002 maybe. And then what happened is it morphed into okay, we're going to have fines, we're going to have money coming in from the tree fee. So we need a committee to actually talk about where that money can be used. Some of it was about beautifying US 41 corridor. Some of it was about treescapes. Some of it had to do with the plantings out with Alice White, because Alice was on the committee for years and years, out on Sumter. Where else? What am I missing?
Salford.
Salford, the expansion of Sumter, those trees that were planted in that. So irregardless, they had some things that they worked with throughout the years. I do see an overlap. I do see that there's been problems keeping people on this board, and I do agree wholeheartedly that you can dissolve that committee and go ahead and put the duties that are not regulated in the environmental board to shift them to the environmental advisory board. I think it's a brilliant idea, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Mr. Rich?
Yeah, the only other thing I wanted to add when Commissioner Carrison was talking was this was the beginning of our street tree program too, working with Alice White. And we were designing the US 41 corridor with the help from the county. So that was part of this board's mission too, because we were picking certain trees and according to line of sight issues and breakaway possibilities and stuff like that, because we didn't have curved medians. So like I said, in the past going forward, it may have used its purpose going forward. So, I mean, we get other designs going in when we do major roadways, like if we're gonna do Price, those designs are coming in, and we really didn't get very much from the board's input when we did Sumter. That had a little help in Biscayne, but, you know, I think combining them into the two groups and letting them discuss it that way, I think that's a proper move at this point. That's all I had.
Thank you. Yeah, I would be inclined to dissolve this board and move the responsibilities over to the environmental board. But I do also have a question concerning our application process, because, you know, I don't think we have, I mean, I know I haven't seen a history. You know, obviously, people have circumstances that arise. They can't make a meeting or two or what have you, as just happened to me this last week. But you also have kind of chronic folks that just don't show up consistently. And, you know, when we get these applications in for these folks sitting on the board, I don't really have a history as if they've ever sat on another board, what that was. If 3 years ago they sat on one board and were removed for reason, due to a reason, or just chronically not being there, and then later decide they want to be on another board, I think maybe that might be something worth looking at, because this definitely has a lot of drain upon the city. You know, every time, we have staff there, we have a lot of things going on, and if you're consistently not getting quorums or having a hard time with folks showing up, I just think that might be something we need to kind of look at, making sure we kind of have a history. If somebody has a history of being in
whether or not we can have that provided for us. City Clerk?
Ida and Susan will put on the staff summary sheet if they've ever served on a board. We can add it to the application. We are getting ready to do our boards and commissions online applications, and we can tailor those to however we want them, so
And
we
then you
will have it
can
on there.
cross-reference that to their attendance,
Mhm.
and then let us know if they're coming through, if it's, like I said, if it's, obviously people have problems, but if it's something chronic, or if they were removed for reason, things like that, maybe. Commissioner McDowell?
Yeah, the Tree and Scenic Highway Committee, they have 3 powers and duties. And one of them is relating to city matters on planting trees and care, landscaping, beautification. From what I'm hearing everybody else, we're basically adding one word to the Environmental Advisory Board, and that's about beautification. And I don't know if it's worth the time and energy to add one word to the Environmental Advisory Board's duties about beautification of the city. I just say disband this board and be done with it. I'm leaning towards that because the Environmental Advisory Board is already talking about planting of trees citywide, preserving trees. The only thing that they're not doing is beautification, but to me, the environment and the trees is already beautiful to begin with. So I think we're just being redundant. That's just my thoughts.
Okay. All right, if I have nobody else, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we dissolve the Beautification and Tree Scenic Highway Committee, but then add the 3rd section of the Beautification and Tree Scenic Highway Committee's criteria.
Powers and duties. Powers and duties?
Yes, be added to the Environmental Advisory Board.
Second. I have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Luke, seconded by Commissioner Carrison. Commissioner Luke, you have anything to that?
Yeah, the first 2 points are just dealing with grants and talking to the city, and that is already within the environmental board. But the 3rd C, letter C, actually carries the care of looking at the landscapes, the public roads, the right-of-ways, and the beautification of it. So that's the one I would like to see carried over.
Nope. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And that carries unanimously. Can I get a consensus from the board to some of the things I discussed about, kind of having a history, letting them put it on the application that they've served before, and then being able to cross-reference that with a history of attendance and
I'm a
things?
yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a consensus there, City Clerk. Are you good with that? Thank you. All right. This will probably be our last topic before we take a little lunch break. Item 19, 13, 18. City Manager, please introduce the item.
Thank you, Mayor. This one also is the city attorney's item. She put on at the request of Commissioner Luke.
That is correct, and this relates back to the commission's previous direction to bring back an ordinance related to vaping and tobacco product sales in the city under the age of 21. As background I provided you, the county did discuss this matter at their last meeting on Tuesday and decided not to act on the matter until they see what happens at the state level. So I believe the commissioner wanted to put it on just to see if your temperature was still the same, if you wanted to move forward with the ordinance now or wait on the county or the state to do so. But I'll let her speak to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, the reason that I did request it for discussion is we had given direction of where we wanted to go with an ordinance to staff. But then Chair Hines spoke with us at the joint meeting and then here too about, well, they would write one. So when the county county got together, it was, the majority of them were like, well, let's just wait. State will probably be doing something by March, but nothing's going to go into effect until July, and what they're going to put in place, we don't know either. And I know it was last minute, but I forwarded some information to you from the American Heart Association. Then just this morning, more information where Charlotte County is stepping up, doing the Tobacco 21. Venice is in a meeting right now also wanting to move forward with Tobacco 21, looking at Northport to maybe jump off or piggyback with them. Even the county remarked that Northport probably would proceed and not wait. So at first it was going to go on to say, oh, just don't have the attorney do any work because the county is going to be doing it. But then when the county said, no, we're not going to work on it, the discussion needed to change then. So I am wanting our ordinance to proceed. Thank you.
Mr. McDowell.
Yeah, I was unaware that y'all got the same email, so I'm going to just go ahead and pass it out.
I have it.
Tobacco 21, they gave some really great points, and Charlotte County, we did receive the email saying, yes, they want to do it too. The problem I have with the with the county and the state is they're focusing on vaping.
Right.
And our ordinance, we wanted it to be tobacco under 21, not allowed to be purchased, and also vaping products, e-cigarettes and stuff. The county is focusing on vaping. The state is focusing on vaping. And I am one for focusing on 21 for tobacco and for the vaping products, keeping it together instead of separating it. The age restriction for 21, there's age restrictions on everything. Buying alcohol is an example. Being an elected official, you can't be president until you're 45. There's reasons for it. And it says in this document that I passed out, 95% of the smokers start before the age of 21. And I'm almost positive, even though I don't see any data proving it, that vaping starts before 21 too. I would like to proceed with our ordinance for the smoking and the vaping not to be allowed to be purchased prior to 21. If the county and if the state moves quicker than we do, awesome. But I don't see that happening. And I'd only see them focusing on the vaping. And if vaping is bad for you, it's been proven smoking is just as bad. And the only reason why people have gone to vaping is because smoking is so prohibitive. So looked down upon, like Commissioner Carasone had mentioned earlier about the opioids and stuff. So I want to proceed.
Thank you, Commissioner McDowell. I see no other speakers here, so I too would like to proceed with what we began. We began it before the county even, before we knew anything, and so I would be all for the way we had it. I do not mind. I do see the exemption. I think we did put in an exemption for a military personnel, and I don't have a problem with that either. That being said, I would be for this as long as we're making sure that the penalty is. I like the extreme penalty. If you're selling, I'm talking about selling. I'm not talking about using. I'm talking about the selling of it. Those who are selling it know better, or definitely should know better, and will know better if the penalty is greater than the actual crime itself. So, Commissioner Carasone?
I don't know how we went to tobacco. I thought we were talking about just vaping when we last had our conversation, and I am okay with limiting the vaping. But if we're talking about an 18-year-old who is legally determined as an adult unable to purchase a product in the city of Northport, you're not going to stop anything. They're just merely going to go, the next city over, next county, whatever it may be, and they'll receive those tax dollars. I can't agree with that. They're 18. 18 is a legal adult. I understand there is a big difference between the vaping and the tobacco products, huge difference. And I'm okay with that, but I'm not okay with just an overall tobacco. Even the vaping products, I've had several people since we did this, discuss this at first, come up to me and say, hey, that's how I quit smoking. So, I mean, I have mixed feelings on it altogether, but I think that to say that an 18-year-old or over until they're 21 can't buy tobacco products, I can't. They're 18, they're an adult. Can't do it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner McDowell, you have 3 minutes.
Yeah, I agree that they'll just go over to Charlotte County, but Charlotte County is also considering doing this tobacco over 21. So they're not going to be able to do it for long. It'll be a matter of, does Charlotte County get it done first, or does Northport get it done first? And I have a feeling we have been pioneers in a lot of things that we have done on this commission since 2016 when we were elected. And I think this would be one of those things that we can say, yes, smoking is bad for you. Yes, the people that are 18 to 21, they can't even buy alcohol. I have no problem with it. And I know that you're an adult at 18. But the problem is that the 18-year-olds are in high school and they're selling their cigarettes or vaping things on the market at the high school. The state regulates the licensing requirements for tobacco products, but the state doesn't have any licensing requirements for e-cigarettes or vaping products. That is something the state really needs to look at and get fixed. That's why it's not regulated, and they need to step up and start doing that for the vaping products and the e-cigarettes. I have no problem knowing that Charlotte County is looking at this just as hard as what we did back in September when we gave the initial direction about smoking and vaping products. So.
All right. Well, if I have nobody else, I'll entertain a motion.
I have
Yeah, go ahead.
a question to the city attorney. What were you just talking about? I'm drawing a blank.
The licensing requirements?
Yeah, the licensing. Are we able, as a city, to affix a license, for doing the e-cigarette? I would think that we could require that they have a business license.
Everyone who conducts business in the city is required to have the business tax receipt. There is a type of permitting or licensure that was written into the Alachua County ordinance, which the commission opted not to include in our ordinance. So that is an option, but it would require some staff time as well, and there are other things that would go into that.
The Alachua one was very heavy to enforce. I know the pay in and the pay out and stuff like that, so I was wondering if it could be done. With that said, I would just make a motion that we continue with the ordinance, moving forward with the ordinance that we have already put in effect, and include some of this background material that's just come to us to be able to draft the ordinance with the city attorney, SWAT, and our police department.
I'll second.
Motion on the floor by Commissioner Luke, seconded by Commissioner Carrasone. Commissioner Luke, you have anything to that?
By Commissioner McDowell. I didn't second it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner McDowell, I'm so sorry.
No, I appreciate that we're moving forward, and maybe by us moving forward, the county and the state, we're sending, this is not only a message to the youth under 21s, this is a message to the county and to the state. We need to get this done.
All right, I have nobody else. Let's take the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
All right, motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Carrasone dissenting. Commissioner Carrasone, for reason stated, or do you have something else to say?
Reason stated.
All right. With that, we are going to take a lunch break. We'll see you back here about 12:45.
12:45, an hour?
Almost.
45 minutes.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, it's almost noon.